Hi everyone and welcome back to another video. Now this video is the latest video in my series on murderers who were jailed in a specific month of the year in England. Now in this video I would normally go through 12 cases involving a number of individuals, but the month of August has been relatively quiet, which is not unusual considering people go away on summer holidays and so on. So in this video I'm going to go through 8 cases involving 9 individuals who were jailed for the offence of murder. And I'll tell you what they did, the name of the victim, how long the sentence was that they received, and then I'll try and pick out something noteworthy from the case, such as the judge's comments. Welcome to my channel, Andy on Crime, where I talk about high-profile criminal cases and other aspects of criminal law in England and Wales. And if you would like to follow me on other social media platforms, I am on TikTok. My handle is Andy on Crime1, and I've just reached over 5,000 followers on that. And I am also on Twitter or X, and my handle is Andy on Crime. If you would like to support my channel, you can become a member and click the join button down below, or you can sign up with NordVPN, and there should be a link appearing hopefully above me or in the description, and sign up with NordVPN where you can get a huge discount on a range of their plans. I know that VPNs are quite topical after the passing of the Online Safety Act. So if you are going to sign up, you will be supporting my channel. So thank you. And then the final thing, again, I say this in all of these videos, anyone convicted of the offence of murder in England and Wales will be given a mandatory life sentence. The only question is how long the minimum term or tariff will be. That's the period that someone will spend in prison in full before they are eligible to apply for parole. It doesn't mean they'll automatically be released. It's only if they're deemed no longer a danger to the public that they will be released. With all that being said, let's get into the video. At number 1 is Timothy Tinson, who was sentenced on the 5th of August. On the night of the 4th of January 2025 at around 1 AM, 44-year-old Matthew Phillips was found critically injured in the street on Lairgate in Beverley Town Centre in Yorkshire. He had suffered severe head trauma and collapsed in the road following a confrontation with 43-year-old Timothy Tinson. Earlier that evening, both men were present at a property on Lairgate where a dispute broke out, resulting in Tinson being asked to leave. Seconds later, a further verbal confrontation occurred outside of the property, escalating into physical aggression that left Matthew dying. Witnesses described hearing loud thuds and shouting, and court reports indicate that once Matthew lay unconscious, Tinson repeatedly applied force to Matthew's head, leading to fatal injuries. Tinson did not seek help or retreat from his assault, but continued attacking Matthew. A nearby resident opened their front door to find Matthew lying in the street, with Tinson standing over him. Tinson was arrested at the scene on suspicion of attempted murder, and Matthew was taken to hospital, but sadly he succumbed to his injuries. Tinson pleaded guilty to murder on the 4th of August 2025, and the judge acknowledged the plea, but emphasised that the organised aggression and fatal outcome indicated deep culpability. At Hull Crown Court on the 5th of August 2025, the judge sentenced Tinson to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 18 years. At number 2 is Roy Barclay, who was sentenced on the 6th of August. On the morning of the 24th of July 2024, Anita Rose, a 57-year-old mother of 6, set off for her routine dog walk in Brantham in Suffolk. Walking her Springer Spaniel Bruce along a familiar rural footpath just after dawn, she encountered Roy Barclay, who launched an unprovoked and savage assault. Barclay kicked, stamped, and beat Anita, delivering blows so forceful that forensic experts likened her injuries to those suffered in high-speed road traffic collisions. Anita was found unconscious by passers-by, with Bruce still loyally tied to her leg, with Barclay having left her for dead at the scene. Emergency responders rushed her to hospital, but the severity of her head and facial injuries led to her death 4 days later. At the time of the attack, Barclay was unlawfully at large, and he had absconded 2 years prior to avoid recall to prison for a separate violent assault. He had been living in a makeshift camp in nearby woods frequently changing his appearance and evading detection. Investigators found Anita's personal items, her pink jacket, phone case and earphones, in Barclay's camp, alongside his boots bearing evidence matching the footprints at the crime scene. DNA analysis and CCTV footage traced his movements before and after the attack. At Ipswich Crown Court, after a 6-week trial, Barclay was found guilty of murder by a jury. He refused to give evidence in his defence, choosing to remain silent. On the 6th of August 2025, the judge sentenced Barclay to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 25 years. The judge lamented Barclay's evasive behaviour and silence, stating that authorities may never know what triggered this horrifying act of violence. At number 3 is Mohammed Ibrhim, who was sentenced on the 7th of August. On the afternoon of the 1st of February 2025, emergency services were called to a shared house on Warwick Road in Accox Green in Birmingham. Inside the bathroom, 60-year-old Morteza Ajdani was found unresponsive with a single stab wound to the abdomen and was pronounced dead at the scene despite the efforts of paramedics. Officers immediately secured the address and began a forensic search. In the communal kitchen, they discovered 3 knives left in the sink with the tap running, indicating an attempt to wash away potential evidence shortly after the stabbing. Initial accounts given at the scene by housemate Mohammed Ibrhim suggested that Morteza had harmed himself. That claim was quickly undermined by evidence recovered during the search. CCTV footage from within the property was decisive. It showed Ibrhim confronting Mr. Ajdani in the kitchen, arming himself with a knife and then following him into the bathroom where the fatal wound was inflicted. This sequence directly contradicted any suggestion of a self-inflicted injury. Ibrhim was arrested that day and was later charged with murder. He initially denied the offence, but when his trial opened at Birmingham Crown Court on the 28th of July 2025, he changed his plea to guilty as the CCTV and forensic picture was set out in court. The prosecution case set out a straightforward narrative: a confrontation, the deliberate taking up of a weapon, and a single fatal blow delivered in the confined space of a bathroom, followed by an attempt to clean knives and provide a false account to police. On the 7th of August 2025, Ibrhim was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 16 years. At number 4 is Tayyab Hussain and Ezaan Hussain, who were sentenced on the 7th of August. On the 21st of July 2024, in Normancote in Stoke-on-Trent, 21-year-old Thapelo Jali was stabbed to death by Tayyab and Ezaan Hussain. The catalyst for the incident appeared to be Thapelo reportedly colliding with Tawheed Hussain's vehicle. He was the brother of Tayyab and Ezaan Hussain the evening before. The next day, on the 21st of July 2024, Thapelo returned to the area and CCTV footage showed him running into a narrow alleyway off of Hamilton Road. Just 4 seconds after Thapelo entered the alley, Tayyab Hussain, who was 27, and Ezaan Hussain, who was 22, alighted from a car being driven by Tayyab Hussain. The two brothers pursued Thapelo into a dimly lit passage, and within moments they delivered multiple stabbing blows in a chilling and predatory attack captured in graphic detail on CCTV footage. The assault was swift and brutal, with both brothers stabbing Thapelo, ensuring fatal injuries. Following the assault, Tayyab and Ezaan Hussain emerged from the alley and re-entered the car, which then drove off, leaving Thapelo critically injured in the alley. Thapelo was discovered by a passerby shortly after midnight and was found gravely wounded. Emergency services were called and arrived quickly, but tragically he passed away at the scene just after 1 a.m. on the 22nd of July. Both Tayyab Hussain on the 7th of July and Ezaan Hussain on the 9th of July appeared at Loughborough Crown Court, and both of them entered guilty pleas to the offence of murder. Tawheed Hussain was also tried alongside them, and he was found guilty by a jury of the offence of manslaughter. On the 7th of August 2025, the judge handed the following sentences down. Tayyab Hussain received life imprisonment with a minimum term of 22 years. Ezaan Hussain was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 21 years, and Tawheed Hussain received an 11-year prison sentence for the offence of manslaughter. The judge described the attack as a brutal and calculated ambush. At number 5 is James Cartwright, who was sentenced on the 8th of August. On the evening of the 13th of April 2024, Samantha Mickleborough, who was aged 54, agreed to attend a 6-course dinner at the Michelin-star restaurant at Pennyhill Park Hotel in Bagshot, a gesture of kindness to her ex-fiancé James Cartwright as he turned 60. Despite having ended their relationship weeks earlier, she honoured the plan so that he would not feel lonely. Hotel staff observed Samantha becoming increasingly lethargic during the meal, with moments when she appeared almost asleep. These symptoms seemed out of character, but went unaddressed at the time. The couple left the restaurant at around 10:30 p.m. and headed back to their room. The next morning, Cartwright called emergency services, claiming he had discovered Samantha dead in bed beside him, suggesting she had fallen and injured herself. He even placed an engagement ring on her finger and staged the room to imply that they had reconciled in their relationship. Post-mortem examinations revealed clear evidence of foul play. Samantha had suffered a skull fracture, along with fractures to the thyroid cartilage and hyoid bone, consistent with manual strangulation. The forensic pathologists concluded that she had been raped and strangled, disproving Cartwright's notion of an accidental death. Cartwright stood trial, which revealed a deeper and darker narrative. His behaviour during the relationship had been obsessive and controlling, and friends gave evidence that Samantha described feeling suffocated, and post-separation, Cartwright repeatedly showed up uninvited at her home, bombarded her with calls and messages, and behaved possessively. After a 3.5-week trial, Cartwright was found guilty of both murder and rape. He was acquitted of a separate charge of controlling and coercive behaviour. On the 8th of August 2025, at Guildford Crown Court, Cartwright was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 28 years. At number 6 is Charles Hartle, who was sentenced on the 22nd of August. On the evening of the 28th of August 2024, the then 17-year-old Hartle, along with 3 friends, met 17-year-old Noah Smedley in Derbyshire for a cannabis purchase. Hartle concealed the blade of a Rambo-style knife in his trousers without the other's knowledge. After the deal, he unexpectedly advanced, pulling a balaclava over his face and delivering a single fatal stab wound to Noah's chest, which was caught on CCTV and observed by others. There was no visible provocation, and witnesses described Hartle grinning before carrying out the stabbing. Following the attack, he fled the scene, attended a house party where he displayed the weapon and admitted to what he had done, and then proceeded to Derby city centre. Later, he disposed of his clothes, phone and knife before surrendering himself to the police. Hartle's prior history included repeated incidents involving weapons, including threats and lyrics referencing stabbing and gang culture. The court heard evidence of his ongoing fascination with knives stemming back several years. At Derby Crown Court, Hartle was tried for murder. The prosecution relied on CCTV evidence, eyewitness testimony, and Hartle's post-offensive behaviour to demonstrate premeditation and intent. Hartle did not give evidence at trial, but denied intent through a prepared statement claiming that he acted in self-defence. In July 2025, the jury returned a verdict of guilty in respect of the charge of murder, and on the 22nd of August 2025, Hartle was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 20 years. During the sentencing remarks, the judge referenced Hartle's unhealthy fascination with knives and his calculated choice to carry and use one to kill, calling the act a stark reminder of the knife crime epidemic. At number 7 is Daniel Lynch, who was sentenced on the 26th of August. On the night of the 11th of November 2024, in the family home on Bosmere Park near Redruth, 39-year-old Daniel Lynch fatally attacked his 39-year-old brother Shane Lynch in their mother's kitchen. Shane suffered multiple blows to the head with a hammer-like weapon, and a broken knife blade was also recovered beneath and beside Shane's body. A sink containing diluted blood and blood-stained clothing discarded or hidden in the kitchen suggested an attempt to clean evidence. Daniel Lynch initially told family that Shane was asleep on the sofa. However, evidence contradicted this, including CCTV footage that depicted Daniel Lynch moving about the property during the night in distinctive footwear, specifically Nike trainers with glowing white flashes, while leaving the house and later returning without his rucksack, likely disposing of items such as Shane's phone. The immediate aftermath underscored a staged environment. Daniel's clothing had been changed, Shane was found in a different part of the home than suggested, and digital data revealed Shane's phone was disconnected from the house shortly after the assault. Furthermore, photographs of Shane's body were discovered on Daniel's phone before the paramedics arrived. Having been charged with murder, Daniel Lynch stood trial at Truro Crown Court over a 2-week period. The prosecution presented forensic findings, phone data, CCTV footage, and the defendant's contradictory statements. Lynch maintained that he was asleep when the attack occurred, suggesting that a third party was responsible. However, the jury disbelieved these claims and found him guilty of murder. On the 26th of August 2025, the judge sentenced Lynch to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 20 years, with the judge describing the killings as sustained and brutal, noting that the attack involved multiple strikes, some of which whilst Shane was on the ground, and that Lynch took significant steps to cover up his actions. At number 8 is Anthony Ellis, who was sentenced on the 27th of August. On the 11th of September 2012, in Whitworth Park in Manchester, Anthony Ellis assaulted a homeless man called Igor Pavlov with a blunt weapon thought to be a tree branch, causing significant skull fractures and brain damage. Igor survived but was left with severe and long-lasting injuries. Ellis was arrested and later pleaded guilty to the offence of grievous bodily harm with intent, contrary to Section 18 of the Offences Against the Person Act. In August of 2013, he was sentenced to 12.5 years and was found to be a dangerous offender and was given an extended determinative sentence. Igor would later die on the 6th of July 2023, with his death determined to be caused by complications related to those original injuries. Forensic analysis concluded that the 2012 assault was a substantial contributing factor to his death over a decade later. Prior to 1996, the law held that if a death occurred a year and a day after the act, then an individual could not be prosecuted for murder. This was abolished by the appropriately named Law Reform (Year and a Day Rule 1996, which came into force on the 17th of July 1996. The law is now that if a death occurs more than 3 years after the act, then the Crown Prosecution Service must seek approval from the Attorney General to bring a prosecution. As a result, Ellis was charged with murder. And in August of 2025 at Manchester Crown Court, Ellis pleaded guilty to murder, with that plea eliminating the need for a full criminal trial. On the 27th of August 2025, the judge imposed life imprisonment with a minimum term of 15 years. Because of the time already served by Ellis for the offence of grievous bodily harm with intent, this means that he must serve an additional 2.5 years before he is eligible to apply for parole.